Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Snyder, the Tsunami Warning Coordinator at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. Thank you for staying with us throughout the early morning and throughout the afternoon and into the evening hours where you are. We continue to track a tsunami that has been affecting the U.S. West Coast, Canada, and Alaska, as well as the Hawaiian Islands, American Samoa earlier, and of course Tonga, directly under the major eruption that we've seen on satellite pictures now shared around the news and social media for almost 24 hours now. I want to give you a quick update. You can always follow along at tsunami.gov. That's your best source for the straight from the mouth updates there from the National Tsunami Warning Center. They're being shared by National Weather Service offices around the West Coast and, of course, many of our state partners and federal partners across the region. First of all, a tsunami advisory continues for portions of California. Here's the good news. We continue to whittle away at the areas of coastline under the advisory there. So many fewer communities as we go into the evening will still be under that advisory. Continue to pay attention to your local alerts there. A tsunami advisory means stay out of the water and away from the shore, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. Strong currents and dangerous waves are expected in or near coastal waters. They could still be damaging waves, but they're really not going to be inundating waves for most areas there. We have seen some water out of the banks, but most of that seems to be minimal so far, according to our local reports. Again, the Tsunami Advisory has changed just a little bit in the last hour or so. We're primarily focusing on the California coastline now, from the Oregon border down toward the Del Norte Humboldt County line there, again from the Oregon border to the Del Norte Humboldt County line, and a little bit further south there, just south of San Francisco, to areas around Rincon Point there, down to about Davenport Point, about 10 miles northwest of Santa Cruz. So again, it's extreme northern California around Crescent City, and then looking a little bit further south there, south of San Francisco, all the way down to just north of Los Angeles there for our tsunami advisory again. So again, conditions continue to change. I want to show you what we're looking at. This is what our scientists are looking at and have been looking at for the last 12 to 18 hours now. We're watching the tidal cycles, which is what you see here in this blue line. That's the normal situation, what you would expect, high and low tide throughout the day. Twice a day we see these points. What we're seeing on top of that, though, is the red trace line as that is moving up and down. That is the tsunami signal. That is the extra water added on, the extra surge that has been moving away caused by that major eruption in Tonga overnight last night now. And so when you add that to the tidal cycle, that's the red line and that up and down phase and all the different waves coming in. It's not just one wave, it's many waves in and out quite a bit throughout the day. So when we take away the tidal cycle and we only look at that extra water that's been added into the situation, that's the purple line here. And you can see as we got into the midday hours here, this is Crescent City, by the way, when we got into the midday hours, we really saw that peak. That's when we saw the greatest amount of a tsunami signal there in Crescent City, and then as we go throughout the day, that signal starts to lessen somewhat. We got closer to low tide. We also subtracted away the tide and the extra water. Both of those conditions were helping to reduce the amount of water there in and around Crescent City and in the base. So good news there. That trend is continuing across many locations, but what we need to see is that smaller signal now for 3 hours. After we see it for 3 hours, we can remove your section of coastline in California out of that tsunami advisory. So we still have some time to go. We've been continuing to watch that process all day long and pulling more and more communities like yours out of that tsunami advisory, but it still takes some time. So bear with us, be patient, but remember, it's also important. This is a serious alert, and as you'll see here, does cause some considerable damage. I want to say thank you to Twitter user MBearWoman who gave us permission to share this video. This is Ventura Harbor, and what harbor masters up and down California have probably been concerned about. This was happening there earlier today, again caught by our Twitter user MBearWoman, so thank you so much for sharing that. This is in Ventura Harbor, and you can see the boat damage occurring right there. The harbor masters are working hard all day to keep this from happening there. We certainly give our best to the harbor masters up and down the West Coast and Alaska and British Columbia today for working so hard and working with us to make sure that your marine users are staying safe. And it's tough to watch this stuff, but we certainly hope that no one was injured. And thankfully, we have not heard a lot of reports of injuries, certainly not any death into the National Tsunami Warning Center, and at this point, very minimal damage has been reported across most of the West Coast as far as we know. Of course, the damage surveys are ongoing. The U.S. Coast Guard and many of our federal partners are looking into any damage reports as they get them. So thank you for relaying those to your National Weather Service Forecast Office in your community, as well as your state-level partners there who can help coordinate some of that response if needed there, but hopefully damage is minimal at this time. So once again, Ventura Harbor here today, the Harbor Patrol out there, John Higgins working very hard to keep people safe, certainly monitoring at least one boat and probably two that have not had such a good day. So again, be careful out there and stay away from the water. Quick update for those of you who haven't seen some of these updates earlier today. Want to share a few of the higher coastal observations that we have seen. A tsunami has occurred. It is occurring there, and it's hard to tell sometimes from some of our smaller events, but this is not one of those. Let's look at Alaska first. King Cove, Alaska had 3.3 feet of a tsunami measurement earlier today, and we saw lesser amounts as you moved into southeastern Alaska and southwestern Alaska into the Aleutian chain. Those levels at or above 1 feet from Atka out toward Adak and Nikolsky there. British Columbia, Winter Harbor, BC had 1 foot of a tsunami measurement there. Banfield and Tofino also measured smaller tsunamis around a half foot or just less. As you look at the U.S. West Coast, La Push, Washington, 1.1 feet. Westport had about a half a foot of a signature there. Oregon, Port Orford, Charleston, Newport, and Astoria all measuring tsunamis earlier today, anywhere from about a half foot around Newport to 1.5 feet around Port Orford. And then California, here's why we're still keeping sections of California in that tsunami advisory. Port St. Louis, 4.3 feet. Again, this is around the 1 o'clock hour in Pacific time. Arena Cove, 3.7 feet, as well as Crescent City. That was what we saw when we saw those really tall lines there on that purple tsunami plot. Point Reyes, 2.9 feet. Monterey, Santa Monica, Santa Barbara, all seeing tsunami signatures today, as well as San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and Humboldt Bay just under that 1 foot mark there, as well as La Jolla and Richmond earlier today. For those that are just catching up to why we're still talking about a tsunami after 18 messages throughout the day, which is a pretty substantial tsunami event. As you can see here in the satellite picture, this is a volcanic eruption caught on satellite, and look at the shock waves moving out from the island nation of Tonga there. As that shock wave moved out, the best understanding that we have at this point is that it literally pushed on the water just like you would in your bathtub, sending a shock wave of water moving out and away from a significant, probably historic eruption on our planet. And that wave of water, disturbed, moved all the way across the Pacific Basin. And as it did so, moving to the U.S. West Coast, British Columbia, Alaska, the Hawaiian Islands, American Samoa, CNMI, and many of our Pacific Island partners, all affected by this in many ways, of course, including the island nation of Tonga. So we give our best to them and hope everybody is okay and recovering as quickly as possible there. So that's what we know from the National Tsunami Warning Center tonight. Here's what you can expect. For the rest of tonight, we will still have tsunami advisories out for portions of California. Our hope and expectation is that this trend will continue. We will continue to see strong and dangerous currents and waves even after the tsunami advisory is over. We'll cancel the event at some point, hopefully in the evening, early morning hours at worst. And as that happens, there's still going to be strange things happening near the coast. Pay attention to what your local emergency management officials are saying to you. Stay out of the water. If it's not a good time to go in the water, don't go in the water. Give it another day. But we will continue to see some of these effects moving along the U.S. West Coast, British Columbia, Alaska, and all of our Pacific coastlines around the world for some time. This was a significant event. Treat it like that, and you'll be a lot safer. Once again, the most up-to-date information on this tsunami event can always be found at tsunami.gov. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your comments on social media throughout the day, and I appreciate you paying attention to what's going on in your community. I'm Dave Snyder. Thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.